Hi guys, I'm not a therapist, I'm just a coach. Today's session is a little bit different. I have an in-depth conversation with one of my repeat students on some things that he's trying to change about and improve on in his life, talking about his approach to the game, his thought processes with life, and some of the issues that he's been struggling with. Whenever I approach sessions like these, I really just try to approach it just as a friend, as somebody that maybe has had a little bit more experience with dealing with situations like these and just offering some of my best advice and how to deal with those processes. But ultimately, I'm not really professional. So I think that you can learn something from this, but my word isn't gospel. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments. If you have any critiques or any suggestions for a student, those would be helpful too. Enjoy the video, and it gets pretty deep. And you said specifically trying to be better with my focused play just as a whole, like how I'm approaching it.
Yeah.
What have you been trying to do better with that? Because that one's a tricky one. There's some habits that you can set, but sometimes it's just about like applying yourself, and there's no like real life hack or trick to do it. But like, what have you been doing with that?
So, what do you mean?
When it comes to just focusing yourself better, what have you been doing?
Oh, there's a couple different like breathing exercises I've been doing, and like stretching really helps, like in between games.
Okay.
And another thing I do is I will put post-it notes on my monitor to remind me to do the thing that I'm working on.
It's an old school trick, but it still works.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it makes sense.
And I know this is gonna sound a little like crazy or weird, but I've been playing some OW2, and I think that helps too.
Sure.
Like,
Sure.
it's just like the intensity of the focus that I need to play that game, like, and then it kind of like I can kind of like get into that same. I don't know what to call it though, but
flow state.
Like,
a little bit.
yeah, I guess.
Yeah.
I kind of tap into it.
Yeah.
When I play OW2.
Have you ever heard of I've heard of things like pre-game or warm-up rituals? Like you tap
so I have a lot of my entire morning routine is like ritualistic.
Right.
And then I play Overwatch right after that.
Right. So what they've done they've done some studies on that, a little bit of that, and that's a big part of like mentality coaching actually. And the reason why that's the case is when you're getting into a game, whether it's nerves that are a distraction or a lack of attention or whatever, the value of pre-game rituals comes not from just necessarily preparing you physically, psychologically, or mentally, but it's almost like a way of, it demands your attention, it demands your focus. So it kind of allows you to like mentally reset and distract yourself from what happened last or what's about to happen in the future. So for example, if you're going up to bat, like let's say you're a professional baseball player and you've got some nerves, right? The ritual that you might have before a game or before you even go up to bat, right, can distract you from what's about to happen or what's happened in the past, and it helps you to kind of stay in the moment. And for you probably don't have nerves necessarily.
Right. It's like a meditation.
Right. Exactly. You might not have nerves before a ranked game, but you might be a little bit distracted, a little bit frustrated, a little bit tilted, whatever. So when you go into whether it's OW or is it stretching or whatever, you're forcing your mind to focus on something else before it can go back and focus on the game. So it's not even necessarily is OW going to be good for mechanics or whatever. It doesn't matter. You could be playing like
that's
Animal
not what
Crossing.
I'm playing it for.
Right, you're playing it to just allow your mind to relax and or focus on something else, like a little bit of a mental reset. That's why
I don't play it before I play Overwatch though.
But you don't need to necessarily.
I play Kovacs before,
sure,
and then OW after.
So, but like you said, OW is extremely focus demanding, right?
Yeah.
And you're doing that between games. So when you're between games,
that's why I feel like
right.
Kovacs has no urgency whatsoever.
Right. So
that's like a big issue with it.
So when OW is difficult, so it forces you to not think about what just happened in the previous game.
Yeah.
And that could be a really good tool for refreshing your focus for the next game. Or it could be a great tool for refreshing your focus if something tilting happened the previous game. If you're tilted,
what you're saying is when I should do that when I take a break?
You could.
I should do that?
You could. I would take a break, period, if you can, but it's not a bad thing. Let me ask you a question. If you're tilted from a previous game, okay, and you go into an OW game, you're not going to have time to be tilted, right?
Right. And there's nothing to be tilted at.
Right. You're gonna have to put extra effort and extra attention to that. And even stretching, right? Stretching, like for example, stretching is definitely allows you to relax and recenter yourself. But also, you do have to put some of your attention on something, don't you? You have to reach. You have to extend.
How you feel?
Right. So you have to put your attention elsewhere from the game. And so what you'll notice is whenever we talk about mid-game breaks or between games, what are you doing? Whether it's stretching, going outside, touching grass, drinking water, getting some chores done, a lot of it is focused on doing something other than Overwatch, putting your attention other than Overwatch.
When the focus is there, though, I find it beneficial to just Q,
Sure.
play like deathmatch in between games, Vaxa, pulse bombs, whatever.
Sure.
Which I know you're gonna hate me for saying that, but yeah, I use Vaxa
I don't think
to
so.
do pulse bombs.
I mean, for pulse bombs, it's not great, but it's okay,
Is
right?
it? Really?
It's okay for pulse bombs, I guess, for strictly pulse bombs. It's just Tracer in general. The infinite blinks kind of messes with me. Anyway, but yeah, I mean, it's fine as long as you have the energy. Now, what's the only pitfall with that? Think about it. If you're Q, what's inevitably going to happen after a period of time?
I mean, you're gonna like run out of energy, but I don't know. I kind of like that's kind of like something I enjoy.
Okay.
Feeling, you know what I mean? Like, I did it.
Sure.
Yeah.
So
like,
I guess my question for you then is not, being tired is bad, but when you feel like you're tired, what should the game plan be there?
Relax. Like,
sure,
I'm done.
Sure.
Like,
you either call it, or you actually take the time between queues and do 1 or 2 more.
Okay, so what you're saying is I should play like a little bit less, and then take a break, and then come back, and then I can end up playing more.
Yes.
Focus gameplay in one day.
Yes, exactly. I mean that's the only downside of grindstone is you might lose the intensity for each game because you're doing nothing but playing Overwatch. Now if you're in flow state,
preemptively.
Right, exactly. Preemptively. You have to kind of feel like, I'm losing a little bit of attention, losing a little bit of focus. I'm going to go stretch. And then I'm going to play a little bit of Osu. And then, 10, 15 minutes of all that, go back in and see how I do. And if I feel like, I'm not as focused, I'm too tired, then you call it. Right? It's the same when you deal with tilt, right? Whenever people deal with tilt, they have a tendency to either tilt Q or stop playing entirely. When it should be somewhere in between.
I kind of have a caffeine problem too about like the being tired.
Okay. Well, explain to me your caffeine problem. You're not the first person I've talked to about this, but explain to me your caffeine problem, please.
I don't know. I drink gamer subs, like.
Okay.
A lot of it.
Okay. You sound like I shouldn't be doing this, but I'm doing it anyway. Why?
Well, see, okay.
Now you're getting defensive.
No, I have a little history that I don't know if you really like, if it's okay to talk about that on your stream.
Then don't worry about it. If
that makes sense.
It's totally fine. This is personal, so we can. And if you want to talk about this,
well,
I can stop
fine with sharing.
Right
I'm fine with sharing, but.
Well, if you're fine with sharing and you feel it would be beneficial for sharing, or you think people would learn from it, that's fine. But this is your call, not my call. No pressure whatsoever.
I don't know. I'm bad at making decisions.
Okay. Well then let's not rush into the decision then. Let's skip over it then. It's better to say nothing than for you to feel pressured into saying something that you regret later on. So you have a caffeine problem. Do you want to talk about just the caffeine?
Sure.
Okay. So you have a caffeine problem. Wow, you said clearly by saying it's a problem, you know it's not exactly optimal.
Yeah, like I feel like for me, like I probably shouldn't drink caffeine at all. Like,
okay, why?
I don't know. It can make me anxious if I drink too much. Like,
okay,
pretty easily.
There's definitely some extinction that happens with caffeine as well. You take too much of it, and so you have to take a greater amount to kind of get back to baseline. That's one of the dangers of abusing caffeine, for example. So then I guess my question for you is, it's like you shouldn't be taking it at all, but are you taking a lot right now?
It literally doesn't even say how much caffeine is in here, so probably.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Maybe it's something to consider. So when it comes to, I guess this is where I'm struggling a little bit. So when it comes to, we talk about the atomic habits again, right? It comes back to the atomic habits. Small adjustments, right? We don't necessarily want you to go.
It's a problem. It's a problem I know how to deal with, but I don't know if it's a problem or not. Like I have a hard time telling.
Well, caffeine can be can be helpful, right?
Right.
But the difference between a caffeine problem and a caffeine using it as a tool is what? What's the difference for you?
I don't know.
Okay. What's the difference between using painkiller as an addictive substance and using it for its proper term? You see?
See, and okay, so if you're okay with me, I'm just gonna say it.
All right.
Because this ties into it. I used to be a drug addict. I used methamphetamine intravenously, and I've been sober for a little over a year now.
Good for you.
So,
good on you.
Yeah, but that's the problem. Like, I don't know like where these lines are. Like for me, it's like when I was abusing drugs, there was no line. Like any amount was like,
right.
Yeah. But I don't know if it's the same for these other things, like caffeine, and I smoke cigarettes, but
sure. So
you're gonna hate me for that one too.
Sure. That you know what? That's listen. We're one step up from meth, right? Atomic habits. Now,
yeah,
caffeine is a tool. Okay, caffeine is a tool that allows you to focus better and to put in a little bit more energy, and it's also a naturally occurring substance in a lot of the foods and things that we eat, like in chocolate and stuff like that. So it's not necessarily bad in of itself. Now, what it can be bad for is abusing it, and abusing it comes from relying on it too much or getting to the point to where you have to use so much of it just to get to where you should have been before it even existed. So for me, I don't do caffeine very much. I almost never do it, but occasionally, and I'm talking about it once every 1 or 2 weeks, I'll have a cup of coffee when I'm feeling a little bit extra tired, and that allows me to do my job a little bit better. However, every time I use caffeine, there's something in the back of my brain that says, okay, you've used caffeine now. We need to not use it for a period of time to make sure that to only use it when it's necessary, essentially. So for you, are you only using it when it's necessary, or is it getting to the point where you can no longer function without it?
See, I don't know, because like, what's the difference between using it? Okay, what's the difference between like using it unnecessarily and like using it to allow yourself to do more? Like, you know what I mean?
I know what you mean. The problem with caffeine, though, is that when it's allowing you to do more, your baseline continues to drop. So your ability to focus without it gets worse. And so what you do is you continually take more and more and more, and you feel like, okay, I rely on caffeine, it allows me to play better. But actually, it does not anymore. If it gets to abuse point, right? Because what it does is your body relies off of it to get the same level of kick that it should just be generating naturally. You ever heard about melatonin with sleep, right?
Yeah, I
right.
Do that sometimes.
Right. So that's one of the ones that, to my knowledge, I'm not a doctor, but this is from the research that I've done on melatonin. Melatonin falls into a similar category as caffeine, where it's an excellent supplement to use when you really need it. But if you start to use it regularly, your body stops producing its own melatonin because it doesn't think because it doesn't think it needs to anymore. And so now your baseline is shifted, and now you are addicted to melatonin, and you don't even realize it.
Okay,
that's the problem. Caffeine's the same thing. It's not the same level of an addiction necessarily as like a methamphetamine or anything like that.
I mean, it's not the same like harm, but it is the same level.
Sure. It's just that you are trying to use it because you think it's productive, but in a way, it's getting to the point where now you can no longer play at the same level without it, and that's the problem.
Yeah. That's what I figured, but I didn't know exactly how to describe it.
Sure.
Thank you.
And from what we know about caffeine scientifically, that seems to be the case. The other problem with caffeine, and this is arguably even worse, is if you were a coffee addict, not great. But what's generally worse with caffeine is, how are you taking caffeine? What's the product called?
Gamer subs, or I do drink espresso as well.
Okay. What's the product that you're taking it with?
Excuse me?
What was the caffeine product that you're taking? I didn't hear what you said.
Gamer Sups.
Gamers. What's the last thing? How do you spell it?
SUPPS.
Gamer Sups. Gamersups.gg. Let's see here.
It's like an energy drink, but it's sugar free.
Got you. I've got anime breasts in my face as soon as I go on their website. Is it the blowhole blast?
No, I like the dragon fruit punch.
Okay. Dragon fruit punch, 100 servings here. Let's check this out. Maybe this stuff is Okay, I'm trying to look for ingredient list here. It's not giving me an ingredient list. Wait, there you go. Yeah, this doesn't look as bad as I thought it would be. Seems to be mostly naturally based, naturally sourced. No, it doesn't seem to be no added sugars. Okay.
Yeah.
So you got that going for you. Erythritol, from what we know, is probably one of the okay. Some people have erythritol issues with their stomach, like sugar-free gum. Erythritol can be a little bit problematic, but if it's not bothering you, yeah, this isn't horrible. Malic acid, natural. Okay, so here's the problem. I was very excited, and then I'm looking at this thing here, and it says natural and artificial flavor. Sucralose, which has a mixed pass. Sucralose is generally one of the better artificial sweeteners, but it still can cause issues for some people. So that sucralose is, I believe, what was the there's a sucralose. It's a really famous artificial sweetener, Splenda. And then also Red Lake 40. So there's artificial coloring as well, which has been linked to, I believe, to hyperactivity and some mental stuff in children. Don't quote me on that, but I would do your research on that.
Uh-oh.
So
that's me.
Yeah. So that's the problem. Is it looks really sweet and juicy, right? No pun intended. But then it's got a couple of not so great tie-ins. So I don't know. That's the other problem with caffeine, right? Is a lot of times it's piggyback.
I've never been like a super nutritious person. I've never been one to like analyze like the ingredients and shit and like.
Right, and that's fine. I'm not expecting you to go crazy with it, but I do have to be honest with you, and I would consider that a little bit. So for you, if you were to use caffeine, I would prefer it from just the espresso or black coffee, something more direct, more straightforward, less baggage. If that's something that you can reasonably do, and then based off of our conversation so far, when and how often would you use it?
Right, like only like if I'm like having a really like rough day or something,
sure,
like you
sure.
know.
Give me an estimate, just total guess, gut call. How often? Right? How often should you use it?
Like maybe twice a week.
Sure, that seems good for me.
Would be healthy.
That seems good for me. I'm not a doctor, so just take my words with a grain of salt. But that seems like a general good ballpark estimate, right? So that
because my baseline reasonable. Meaning like what I should be able to do on a normal day. So like most days of the week, I'm either normal or better.
Sure. And here's the other thing too. If you have a not great day, it's not a bad day, but not a great day. It's okay to have a not great day. Practice can still be practice, right? So I wouldn't worry too much about that. And
well, for me, there's a lot of variance. I don't know, some undiagnosed disorder, something like that.
Sure.
Whatever.
I get you. But this is okay. This is another small. Yeah. This is another. I wouldn't even say small. This is another significant victory for you if you're able to improve at this. You know.
Right.
You know. Yeah, absolutely. That seems very reasonable to me. I'm trying to think. And what we'll do is, if you're not quote unquote abusing caffeine anymore, it might force you to kind of take a little bit more of a serious look at what's causing you to feel like you need caffeine all the time, right? Like what
it's because like, okay, so I have a really like one-track mind.
Sure.
Like when I get set on something,
sure,
it's the only thing I want to do. I obsess over the things that I enjoy the most, and then they become like special interests, and I only want to do that.
Sure.
Right. And so when you only want to play Overwatch all day long, it like eventually you get to a point where you're like, I can't reasonably play anymore. Like this is just too crazy.
Right.
And you feel like, but I don't want to stop playing.
Right.
Because then I have to do something else.
Right. So let me ask you a question. Have you experimented with other things to supplement Overwatch?
Well, see, because that's the other issue that comes from this is like, then, that's why, like, part of the reason why I'm doing other things, and I'm even playing a little bit of Hearthstone too, because I'm like, okay, I have to do other things. Because another issue is like my value as a person becomes tied to like how well I do in Overwatch. Right. If that's all I do.
Right. And by the way, that's not just, how old are you, by the way?
22.
Yeah, and that's not just a result of, you know, whatever issues that you were struggling with. That's also very, very high correlation between that and age. Younger people, and you're still rather young, tend to be more one-track minded and have some of their value correlated, tied to whatever they do, because they're generally less going on with you, right? As you get older, that's why older people don't play video games as much, or don't get as good, because there's too many other things that they have value tied to. So don't sweat that one too much, but keep going.
I don't know. Compared to my peers, like anecdotally,
sure.
it's far worse.
Sure. That's fair. So,
what was I
talking about? Hearthstone, trying to expand your horizons.
Oh, right. Because then it's just like it makes it so like when I play Overwatch, like I don't know, I've been like juicing it up, you know. I've been like, okay, I'm doing other things, you know. I'm just thinking about it. And then I go and I play it, and I'm like super excited, and I'm like, you know, it's like easier to focus.
Yep. What do you mean juicing it up specifically? Like you've been thinking about it all day long? Or what?
Well, no, because I always play in the morning, right? Yep. So then, but then like, you know, when I do other things during the day, and I just think about Overwatch.
Yeah.
Then, or like maybe watch some videos. Then like, when I go to bed, I'm like, all right, I'm super excited to wake up tomorrow and play, you know?
I don't know. As long as it's a positive thing, I don't think there's necessarily a problem with it. What I would do is just...
Then when I don't know, when I wake up, then it's easier to focus on the game because I did that.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
I wouldn't necessarily avoid that. I mean, I think a lot of people who have become great at things have done so because they have not, I wouldn't say necessarily become obsessed with it entirely, but it was a huge priority. I mean, it's funny that you bring this up, but I was literally joking around with my wife today because I literally dreamed last night about something that I had to do today that I forgot to do. I was dreaming about, I need to set this up, or what if I did this? I've come up with ideas for content in my dreams. And that's a little bit obsessive, right? But that's also what's made me good at what I do. Now, you and I both have the same problem. It's a lot like the caffeine thing, right? Where there's a nuance to it. There's being very dedicated and achieving greatness through your dedication and your work, and then getting physically, mentally ill, or being less of a person because you've become obsessed, right?
I don't know. I feel like it's different for me because like when I play Overwatch, I'm not really a competitor. I'm a scientist, if that makes sense. Right? Like I'm trying to like solve the problems.
Sure. So you look at Overwatch like as a game, trying to solve the game better as a whole, just play the game better as a whole.
Yeah.
Okay. And give me some examples of that.
It's just the way that I approach learning the game. Like,
sure.
I don't care about like, you know, how like, to some extent I care about my rank, and when I really grind it, I care more. And each time that I rank up, I care more. But I try not to, because it doesn't really matter to me. You know, what matters to me is like, just the understanding and like being aware. Because I guess like this game is like the lens through which I look at myself, if that makes sense.
No,
I can see more. I don't know. I can be more introspective because of learning how to play Overwatch.
So I'm struggling to see where that's necessarily a problem. I think if anything, this has been a very positive.
No. I'm not saying that it is a problem, but I'm saying that I think that's what enables my obsession to be like successful.
Sure.
To some extent.
Sure.
But if I let it go too far, then it's harmful.
Right. I got you. Well, then you seem to have a pretty good grasp of what's good and what's not good for you right now. I agree with you that at least so far, Overwatch has been a largely positive influence for you. And I think I've learned more from coaching this game than I have with any other job, and it's developed me a lot as a person. And I'm very glad to hear that for you, it's been much the same experience, right, as a player. But for you, like you said, it's just going to be about kind of keeping an eye on that, and to make sure just even if it's going through the motions, even if you're thinking about Overwatch while you do it, to try and push yourself into other avenues, right? And obviously Hearthstone and things like that, but honestly, not just other video games.
But like, well, I mean, I have a part-time job as well.
Okay,
like, I don't work a ton, but I work enough to make money to be able to.
Sure.
You know,
read a book, right? Spend some social time with friends or family or whatever. True. You know, like just a little bit, right? Just a little bit.
See, I don't know. Sociability is kind of weird for me.
Okay. You don't have to talk about it.
It's not something. It's not something I hold a lot of value to, like, or that I really care to do or to get better at doing. I don't know. Yeah.
I can see that. Let me think about that for a second. To me, sociability falls into two categories for me. And I know I'm talking about me a lot, but I'm trying to see. I don't understand you as well as I would like, so I'm trying to explain my standpoint and see if you can relate, if that makes any sense.
Okay.
So for me, sociability holds two things. One, I know when I'm being social, generally I'm like, that was a good time. I didn't want to, drive an hour to see my family or whatever, but I'm glad I did. It was really good to see them, and it made me feel a lot happier and like more relaxed. Otherwise, I know I would have been sitting at home and working, right? I needed that break, right? The other thing that it does for me is I also know that people want to see me, like my family, my friends, like they want to spend time with me, and it's nice of me and kind of me, and it's the right thing to do for me to spend time with them, right? And so it is a little bit of a responsibility, but it's also the right thing to do. So that's where sometimes sociability falls in for me when I don't want to do it, right? I have to consider those factors. Okay. Now, I don't know if those factors apply to you. You tell me.
Okay, so let me explain it. For me, like, I know that this isn't like how it works in real life, but in my head, like, anytime that somebody talks to somebody else, it's to serve a purpose, right?
Okay.
So either I want something from somebody or they want something from me, right? So we communicate with each other.
Sure.
Like, and I don't understand, like, I don't know.
I know
it feels like some people talk for no reason.
No, I agree. I'm not a small talk guy either. Otherwise, I wouldn't have gotten this job. So here's a question for you, though. Do you benefit from relationships? And by relationships, I just mean friends, family, whatever.
Yeah. Specific ones in very specific ways.
So then how do you build relationships? You kind of see where I'm going with this, right?
Right.
So even by your parameter, right? By your parameter, you're right. You want something from somebody, or you're going to give them to something. Like there's some exchange of goods and services. Now it's a little bit of a harsh way of looking at it, but when I spend time with my family, it's because I'm trying to help them. They need me, or I need them because I want to know, and I care about them, right? I want to know how they're doing. So for you, it's like you're not wrong. You're looking at it in a very blunt way, but you're not wrong. So I guess that's my question.
No one's ever said that.
Said what?
To me. You're not wrong. Like that about that. Like,
well, it's just a very blunt way of looking at it. It's a very blunt, but you're not wrong, and it doesn't necessarily mean that it's a selfish way of looking at it either. Like if I spend some time with, like, let's say a friend of mine who I just don't enjoy spending time with, but I know that they need help, even if it's just over Discord DMs, right? That's a priority for me because I care about that person. It's the right thing to do, and they need my help, right? You're right. It is a little bit of an exchange of goodness and services.
Well, see, I don't know. Like, to some extent, I have a hard time with that because, like, I can see things for what they really are.
Sure.
And for some people, I feel like they need a lot more than they give, and it makes it hard to, like, I don't know. And it's a lot of people.
Yeah, it is. It is.
It makes it hard for me to, like, logically, like, engage with that person if that's the reality of what's happening.
So you see it as sort of almost like a little bit, not necessarily a lost cause, but as in, like, it's going to take a lot for me to be able to do anything positive for you.
No, it's just that, like, I can see that it's non-beneficial. So why would, like, I don't want to talk to you.
Well, you're not wrong.
You know what I mean? But at the same time, I can see when I do that to other people, and it makes me feel bad. and then I don't want to talk to them.
Give me an example, if you can. X and Y person,
okay.
Whatever. Just give me an example to make sure I understand.
Somebody that I work with.
Sure.
Talks like to the other employees, like, I don't know, says things about me that I don't know what she says, but it's not like great.
Right.
And it kind of rolls off my back until people say something to me directly. And then I'm like, I don't understand, like, what's happening right now? Like, where did this come from?
Okay.
And it's this coworker. And so, like, I literally cannot, like, talk to them in any capacity, like, in any professional capacity, because it doesn't make sense to me.
So you're saying that because you know what that person thinks and how that person feels about you, it's very difficult to just ignore that when you're working on a professional capacity with a person. It's hard for you to be objective when you know what type of person that is.
For example, this employee actually had me drug tested by spreading rumors because I confided in them about my addiction because they were the one who trained me on how to do my job, right? So I was like, you know, real honest with them because I trusted them implicitly.
Right.
And then they spread rumors and I had to, you know, go take a drug test.
Right.
To keep my job. I don't know. It was really weird.
Right. And so that probably made you feel really ticked off.
Yeah.
And so then when you work with that person afterwards, all you're thinking is, that's what you did to me. That's what you did to me. That's what you did to me. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's hard to just have a quote unquote normal relationship. Yeah.
And like when they need things from me professionally, because they're not my boss, like we're peers, but you know, like you work together, like, you know, you do things.
Sure.
It's like, it just doesn't make sense why you would ask something from me.
Sure. No, I understand.
And that's an extreme example because those are the easy ones to identify. But
yeah. I mean, it makes sense. It's definitely like, I mean, this happens a lot where people put on a facade, you know, just because it's convenient. You know what I'm saying? If I'm talking,
right, like I that's something I do as well, because like how I act, like naturally, people don't understand.
Yeah. You just don't have time for facades.
It doesn't make sense to them.
Is that it? You just don't have time for facades or foolishness, or you just
it's that I have to do that in order to interact with other people.
Oh, I see.
If I don't, then they won't understand me.
Well, let's put it this way. Why are you putting on a facade? You said because otherwise I can't work with people normally. Okay. When do you not need to be fake? When can you be direct with people? Let me ask you a question. Are you being direct with me now? This conversation lasts 35 minutes. Pretty direct, right?
Yeah.
Right, but we've had the time to actually talk it through, right? We've actually had the time to talk and discuss this. And we have, you know, I'm not your best bud, but I know you. You know me. We've had the time to be able to discuss this through. To me, politeness is just a nice way of saying, I don't have time to be as honest and blunt with you as I can. So I'm just going to make this as pleasant of a situation, pleasant as an intercourse as we can. But if you do get the time and you do have to spend a lot of time with a person, sometimes the best thing that you can do is just put away the facade. You know what I'm saying?
No. Okay. So, I don't know. This is a problem. Like
I'm not very good at this. I'm just trying to converse with you.
I know. I'm just.
And you let me know where I'm wrong.
That's the thing. I don't know where you're wrong, but it's just that like, it takes a lot of focus and active energy to talk to people, right? A lot.
Okay.
And so,
what about something you're completely comfortable with? Is it
right? Like Overwatch, like that's easy for me.
Okay.
Like we're talking about Overwatch.
Okay. Is it?
And I don't really understand it.
Is it the pretending that you don't? Is it, for example, like with this coworker? Is it difficult to talk with him because you don't enjoy talking about what you're talking about, or is it difficult talking with him because you just all you're thinking in the back of your mind is like what you did to me? Is it the facade, or is it the topic, or is it both?
It's I don't know for sure.
Okay. Okay.
I haven't looked into it that much.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's a complicated issue, you know? Human beings are weird.
Yeah.
What I would
Well, it's just I understand that my brain works differently from other people. Like, I'm aware of that, but it just makes it really hard to, like, because I like computer analogies. Like,
sure.
My brain is like a single threaded CPU, whereas other people, they have like multiple threads. They can do different things at once. Like, for me, that's really, really hard.
But then you have your own strengths and weaknesses to live by, right?
Right.
Whereas a lot of people are very miserable because they never get an opportunity to really pursue what they want to pursue or say what they want to say. Whereas for you, that's actually almost the default standpoint.
Yeah. But it, to some extent, it makes it hard for other people to understand my struggles because they're just a little bit different.
Of course. And you have a hard time understanding theirs.
Yeah.
But that doesn't necessarily mean that you're flawed.
And so I look at them as incompetent when really it's just the same. It's the same way they look at me, you know?
Right. It's just the same sides of a different coin. Like, they are incapable of actually speaking or communicating directly, or maybe they're just not comfortable with it as you are.
Right. Like, I don't understand body language or facial expressions really well, but I understand words.
Sure.
And how to use them.
Sure. So lean into that. And I think this is coming from my viewpoint of things. But I believe that being direct is a very, like, human beings, a lot of us can be really selfish, right? Being really selfish. But I don't think there's anything inherently wrong with being direct, right? For example, I think some of the nastiest things that we can do as human beings, and something that I think everybody needs to work at, myself included, are the ugly things that we say about people behind their backs, right? And then not just being forthright. Maybe that's something that you don't struggle with as much. You know, when people look at you, you're like, you know, what is this guy saying? But everybody else says equally or even worse things behind somebody else's back without really thinking about it. The other thing to consider is that a lot of people never really pursue things well, like what you're pursuing with Overwatch or whatever else that you're pursuing. And they kind of float around. You know what I'm saying? For lack of a better term.
Right. Like yesterday, I had this experience. Like, I was in the flow state or whatever you want to call it. Mm-hmm. And I was like, this is like what I want to be doing. You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't matter that I'm not the rank I want to be, right? Like, I'm actually doing what I want to be doing.
Sure.
And it was just like a beautiful moment.
Sure. And the nice thing that is probably the case with you, and is that flow state is not unique to Overwatch for you. I'm sure there's other activities that you will learn over the next 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, whatever years that will provide similar experiences where you pursue them, you achieve maybe not mastery.
Well, it's more than just the flow state. It's like the obsession as well.
Sure.
It's when they combine, like, you're obsessed and you're like involved and present.
Right. Well, it's what makes the flow state so enjoyable, is because you're doing it in something that you really truly enjoy. Right. And that's a lot of times what enables flow state, is if you're not fully involved in what you're doing, you're not going to get into flow state, and you're not going to get fully involved in what you're doing unless you actually
the other enabler is like crisis.
Right, exactly, because it's like important, endangerment. Right? It's important, right? So if something's important to you, it's either because you need to put importance on it or you enjoy it. So those two things go hand in hand. So I guess for me, it's about pushing your limits in different ways, whether it's with conversation, whether it's with relationships, or whether it's with other tasks, not because you should just do that because that's what normal people do, but because that may or may not be beneficial for you as a person. You see what I'm saying?
So what you're saying essentially is I should just do the things that make me uncomfortable, that I'm bad at, to get better at them.
Yes.
And then I'll be like,
yes, but don't just do them randomly just for the sake of I'm bad at them, right? Ask yourself, when you're talking about this relationship with your coworker, should you be direct with that coworker and be like, hey, listen, I really didn't appreciate with what happened. You know, like, that wasn't very nice of you. And you know, I'm not holding it against you. I'm trying not to hold it against you, right? but I don't appreciate
I
that.
don't know. I just think it's fucking funny at this point.
Sure. Okay. But that's what I'm saying. It's like, are these conversations that you need to have? Do you need to work on being generally polite? So when people are polite, right? Why are people polite?
Because it serves a purpose.
Right. It serves a purpose, right? People like being nice. But people like when people are nice to them, right? Is it always honest all the time? No. But
no, I don't think it ever is.
But our goal with politeness is to, at least it should be, true polite people sometimes have ugly thoughts, but they try to prioritize and try and be more polite because it's a nice thing to do.
You can't control your thoughts, but you can control your actions.
Right. The type of people, there's a difference between polite people and hypocrites, right? I don't want you to be the nice guy because that's the nice thing to do. Meanwhile, you hate everybody, right? You should be polite because you should be trying to feel the polite things that you're saying. And that's, to me, where I think you could grow.
Oh.
You know? And when you're reading a book, right?
Wait.
When you're reading a book, let me ask you a question. Are you reading the book because I hate it and I just have to do it because I hate it? Or are you reading a book because you're trying to read the book to see if it's something that you can actually enjoy and really truly feel?
Usually I read a book to see if there's something I need to know inside of it.
Sure. Okay. But my point is that when you're expanding your horizons, you're not doing it because it's miserable and you have to be miserable to expand yourself. You're doing it because, hey, maybe I can actually grow to be the person that I want to be in that regard.
Right.
When you're being polite, you're trying
I want to be better and I want to learn more.
Sure. And when you're being polite, you're like, well, I don't really feel like being polite, but maybe if I want to be that, I want to be nice. I want to feel these kind things. I want to wish well on other people. So therefore I'm polite. You kind of see what I'm saying? It's a little bit of fake until you make it.
If I act a certain way repetitively, like consistently, I'll like feel that.
Well, you might. I would definitely do it. Start from a standpoint of something that you legitimately feel good about. Like, for example, with this coworker, do you feel like? I'm trying to think of a good way to put this. You don't necessarily feel polite towards this person internally. Okay. I
didn't know polite was a feeling.
Right. Oh, I'm paraphrasing a little bit. It's not really a feeling.
Okay.
Okay. You don't necessarily feel very polite towards this person. So maybe the best thing for you is to have a conversation with this person. But in that conversation, you have to be honest with. So here's the standpoint. Here's the standpoint of things. Okay, this person did something to hurt you, right? And that's frustrating. That's annoying. Okay, right? But your selfish internal voice is telling you that this person did it maliciously and because they hate you and they want to hurt you and they have no reason behind it, right?
Well, no, see, the thing is, that's not it. It's an enigma. I don't understand it.
Okay.
And it bothers me because I don't have the answer.
Okay.
Why would somebody act like that? It's unpredictable.
Right. It is unpredictable. And it's also impossible to know because you don't know their internal motivation. A lot of human beings... Let me put it this way. You don't understand it.
I hate unpredictability.
You don't understand it. You know what normal human beings do when they see something like that? They don't understand it just like you, but they automatically assume the worst. That's what they do. Someone says something hurtful, they're a hateful and evil person. Somebody dropped something, they were being careless and thoughtless, they're doing it.
Well, wouldn't it be better to be able to operate on an assumption rather than like always like wondering what the right answer is?
Yes. Under an assumption is sometimes really important when a response is needed immediately, right? Because we can't sit there and think and theorize. Like, for example, if I smell smoke, I'm not going to sit there and be like, it could be.
No, okay. But like, these are the things that distract me when I'm like in the middle of a team fight. As Tracer, and I miss my pulse bomb. I'm like, fuck, everyone at work hates me.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. I got you. But what I'm saying is, when these social interactions, I think it's productive to not always assume the worst out of people. Like, and that is not something that you struggle with. You treat it as an enigma. Most people, the average polite person, generally assumes the worst, and I think that's bad. And that's something that I think is actively.
Yeah, see, that's an issue I have though, is that I don't like to act on things that I'm not sure about.
Good for you. You're better than the average population already with that. Most people, normal people,
but it's an issue because I don't know. a lot of times I don't do anything, and that in itself is the action.
Yeah, that's true.
Which is a problem.
That's true. That's true. Like in this situation right here, let me spitball some ideas for you. So this person got you drug tested because they genuinely don't like you and they're a hateful person. Okay. So then why are they a hateful person? Maybe that they had a drug abuse problem, or they had a drug addicted parent who abused them. And so that whenever something like that gets set off, they tend to respond very negatively because they have a horrible negative correlation with drug abuse and drug addiction, right? So it scares them, right? Now, that was still an unfortunate and ugly thing that they did, but do you see the reasoning behind that? That's a possibility. Another possibility is that they were legitimately scared. Another possibility is that they thought that, oh no, this guy's back in the job, maybe it's best for him. Like, do you see this? Like, even the negative repercussions have reasons behind them. And the reason why that could be important is when you communicate with that person, you might be communicating with somebody who would benefit you and benefit themselves from approaching it from a standpoint of understanding and not accusation. So you don't understand it, but there could be a lot of reasons behind it. And not all of those reasons are really, really evil. Do you see that?
Yeah, I get that, but it's not that I deem them evil. People are not good or bad.
Well, I know you're not. I know you said just it's an enigma, right?
Yeah.
And I guess for you,
it's something that I can't draw from because I don't, like, how do I be like, okay, what am I going to do next time somebody does this? Like, it doesn't make sense.
Yeah, it's fair. I guess for you, it'd be like, is there
I can't learn from it, I guess, is the problem.
Maybe. I don't know if this is possible, but if you get the opportunity to have a conversation with that person, right, outside of the work setting when you can actually put time and thought into it, maybe that's something you can dig into. Be like, well, what would you say? What would you say?
Oh, God. Yeah, this is the hard part.
Yeah.
All right.
Be honest.
Yeah, I don't know.
But don't assume the worst. I know you don't know, but not knowing is...
Well, because I don't even know for sure that it was them that did it. Like, you know what I mean? So I can't...
Okay. So then right
that's
there,
the other piece. Yeah.
That's an understandable difficulty, right? There'd be nothing more uncomfortable than trying to try and have a conversation where it's completely irrelevant, right? And then I understand.
But no, I know that they say things to other employees because other employees have told me, but I don't know if, I just figure.
Sure.
Because it couldn't have been anyone else.
Sure.
I don't think.
Well, sometimes there are things where that kind of crap happens, and you're just like, that's really unfortunate. Nothing I can really do about it. And as best as you can, I don't know if this is the proper term, but not compartmentalize, but shelve it. Put it away. Put it out of your thought. Do your job to the best you can. Build relationships with the people that you can.
Right.
And maybe down the road.
The way I know,
go ahead.
That's the thing. The way I know how to empty my mind is to think everything all the way through to the end.
Okay.
And then you're done. And
sure,
you're ready.
Sure. Well, with this situation, it could be this person. If you find out it is this person, you could have a conversation with this person. But as it is now, we have no way of knowing. So there's nothing really we can do about it. Shelve it as best as you can.
Yeah.
And then focus on your next relationship. Like you should. I don't know. To me, I'm biased with this because I'm on your side, obviously. But also at the same time, I'm also biased because I'm all for doing the right thing, even if it's a little bit uncomfortable and even if it's a little bit difficult, even if it puts undue pressure on you. That's not fair to you, right? To me, it's like I would encourage you to be, for example, like I'm making you, if theoretically, if you knew this person was the person who caused this, right? I'm putting the responsibility on you to solve the issue. Right.
Right.
But it's because I'm talking with you. If I was talking with them, I'd be saying the same thing, but flip side. Right.